Hello. Thank you for joining us for another edition of The Bible Made Me Catholic. Like many young American kids growing up, I learned about the establishment of our country. Men and women who helped form the Declaration of Independence, who gave their finances, their families, and their lives during the Revolution. Mostly, these were Protestant leaders and members of the Christian faith. What I didn't know, until I became Catholic and started relearning our American history, was that there were Catholic patriots who participated as well. At the time, less than 2% of the colonial population was Catholic. Yet they served right alongside their fellow patriots through it all. Men like Thomas Fitzsimons and Daniel Carroll, Commodore John Barry, Colonel Steven Moylan, the heroic Maryland 400, and a courageous nurse named Mary Waters. Let's take a quick look into the lives of these early Americans and see how they supported the beginning of our nation. Our story begins in the halls of politics with a group I like to call the political powerhouses. First and foremost among them was Charles Carroll of Carrollton. Out of all the signers of the Declaration of Independence, Carroll was the wealthiest. He was also the longest-lived of all the signers, surviving to the ripe old age of 95. But perhaps most notably, Charles Carroll was the only Catholic to sign the Declaration, in a time and place when Catholics faced serious prejudice and marginalization. It was Charles Carroll who broke through that glass ceiling and became the first prominent Catholic politician in American history. After signing the Declaration, Charles himself held a number of diverse political positions within the newly formed country. In 1789, he became one of Maryland's first 2 U.S. senators before retiring from politics in 1800. He died in 1832. Charles Carroll's brand of patriotic Catholicism is one that we can truly learn from today. With Carroll, we're looking at someone who was under severe legal and personal disabilities, but who didn't give up. He persevered, he ultimately triumphed, and he made this country a better place, not just for Catholics, but for everyone. Now, Charles wasn't the only Carroll risking his life and fortune. His cousin, Daniel Carroll, was also answering the call of duty. Until the Revolution, Daniel Carroll led the life of a typical country gentleman of the day. But when conflict broke out, Carroll became an active partisan of the colonists, serving as a member for Maryland in the Old Colonial Congress from 1780 to 1784. He was also a delegate from Maryland to the convention that sat in Philadelphia in 1787 and framed the Constitution of the United States. On his return to Maryland, Carroll used his influence and efforts to be largely instrumental in having the Constitution adopted by his home state. And working right alongside Daniel Carroll at that historic convention was another giant of the era, Thomas Fitzsimons. Thomas Fitzsimons was born in Ireland around 1741 and immigrated to America with his family as a young boy. Settling in Philadelphia, he entered the mercantile trade and eventually became a highly successful businessman. Fitzsimons did far more than support independence from afar. During the Revolutionary War, he served in Pennsylvania's militia and contributed critical supplies and financial support to the cash-strapped American cause. His leadership and practical experience earned him the deep respect of his fellow patriots and established his reputation as a capable public servant. Fitzsimons distinguished himself through steady service and a commitment to building effective institutions. His most enduring contribution came in 1787 when he represented Pennsylvania at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. There, delegates debated how to create a stronger national government while preserving the liberties for which the Revolution had been fought. When the Constitution was completed, Fitzsimons became one of the 2 Catholic signers, alongside Daniel Carroll. These faithful men placed their names on the document that would become the supreme law of the land. Unlike many of the famous founding fathers, Thomas Fitzsimons did not leave behind dramatic speeches or a massive body of writings. As a result, his contributions are often overlooked today. But his life illustrates an important truth about the American founding. The nation was built not only by famous visionaries, but also by dedicated, everyday citizens willing to serve the common good. As an immigrant, businessman, patriot, Catholic, and signer of the Constitution, Fitzsimons embodied many of the qualities that helped shape the American experiment. But signatures on parchment weren't enough to secure a new nation. To win a war, Washington needed brilliant leaders in the field. That brings us to our second group, the military leaders. First, let's look at Commodore John Barry. Born in County Wexford, Ireland, Barry went to sea as a cabin boy before immigrating to Philadelphia in the 1760s, where he built a highly successful career as a merchant sea captain. At the outbreak of the American Revolution, he abandoned his lucrative merchant career to join the Patriot cause. He commanded several renowned Continental Navy warships, including the Lexington and the Alliance. He captured the first British war vessel on the high seas, commanded ground troops at the battles of Trenton and Princeton, and fought the final naval action of the Revolutionary War. Barry was renowned for his gallantry, strict discipline, and remarkably humane treatment of his crew and prisoners. While Barry commanded the waves, Washington relied heavily on another Irish-born Catholic leader on land, Colonel Steven Moylan. Steven Moylan volunteered early in the war in 1775. He was a trusted aide-de-camp to George Washington and is widely credited as the very first person to record the phrase United States of America in writing. He documented the phrase in a letter to Colonel Joseph Reed on January 2, 1776, months before Thomas Jefferson popularized it in the Declaration of Independence. Moylan served in several vital administrative and leadership roles, including Mustermaster General, Secretary to the Commander-in-Chief, and the Second Quartermaster General of the Army. He was eventually commissioned as the Colonel of the 4th Continental Light Dragoons, and later went on to command the entire cavalry of the Continental Army. Of course, the war wasn't fought only with swords and muskets. It also required delicate diplomacy, which brings us to Stephen's spiritual contemporary, Father John Carroll. Father John Carroll was an American Jesuit priest who served as the nation's first Catholic bishop and the founder of the American Catholic hierarchy. Operating as a deft statesman and patriot during the American Revolution, he built the institutional foundations of the Church in the United States. At the request of the Continental Congress in 1776, Father Carroll traveled to Canada alongside Benjamin Franklin, Samuel Chase, and his cousin Charles Carroll on a delicate diplomatic mission seeking Canadian neutrality or support for the American Revolution. Later, appointed as the first Catholic bishop in the U.S. by Pope Pius VI in 1789, he oversaw the Diocese of Baltimore, which covered the entire country. He became the first U.S. archbishop in 1808. Carroll also founded Georgetown College in 1789, laying the groundwork for Catholic higher education in America. He is widely credited with helping influence the religious liberty protections enshrined in the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. During his life, Carroll bridged the gap between the Protestant majority nation and a growing Catholic minority, ensuring that the Catholic Church was viewed as fundamentally American and loyal to the new republic. While officers and politicians mapped out the path to victory, the true cost of independence was paid on the front lines by everyday people, our unsung frontline heroes. No story of sacrifice is more powerful than that of the Maryland 400. The Maryland 400 were a group of soldiers from the 1st Maryland Regiment who made a legendary rearguard stand at the Battle of Brooklyn on August 27, 1776. With the Continental Army surrounded and facing total annihilation, General Lord Sterling ordered a tactical retreat across the marshy Gowanus Creek. To buy time for the rest of the army to escape, a contingent of about 400 Marylanders stayed behind to serve as the rearguard. Outnumbered by over 2,000 British and Hessian troops entrenched at the Old Stone House, the Marylanders launched repeated, desperate bayonet charges. The unit lost over 250 men, killed, wounded, or captured. However, their bravery and sacrifice bought enough time for General George Washington to successfully evacuate his troops to Manhattan, ensuring the Continental Army survived to fight another day. But the front line wasn't just made of bayonets and bullets. In the disease-ridden military hospitals, another Catholic hero was quietly making history, Mary Waters. Mary Waters was an Irish-born nurse who served with the Continental Forces during the war. She is remembered for providing vital medical care and comfort to wounded soldiers in Philadelphia when disease and hardship threatened the Continental Army. She was born in Dublin, Ireland, and migrated to Philadelphia in 1766. During the war, she served as a nurse in military hospitals, tirelessly caring for injured and ill soldiers under desperate, freezing conditions. She worked closely with Dr. Benjamin Rush, a founding father and prominent physician. Rush deeply respected her professionalism, nursing skills, and absolute dedication to the patients. In 1791, Dr. Rush wrote notes for a planned biography about her life and contributions, an extraordinary honor for a working-class woman of that era. Today, her story is a reminder of the brave women who supported the American cause from the hospital tents. These immense sacrifices, from the halls of the Continental Congress to the bloody swamps of Brooklyn and the hospital wards of Philadelphia, did not go unnoticed by the leader of the Revolution, George Washington, who was a member of the Anglican Church. George Washington fiercely defended Catholic civil rights and praised the patriotism of Catholics in the Revolutionary War. In a March 1790 public letter to the Roman Catholics in the United States of America, Washington formally responded to congratulations from Bishop John Carroll and prominent Catholic leaders. Washington expressed his deep gratitude for the patriotic part which you took in the accomplishment of your revolution and their vital contributions to the nation's independence. He didn't just write letters. He backed up his beliefs with actions. He famously banned the anti-Catholic Guy Fawkes Day and Pope's Day in his military camps in 1775. He denounced the holiday of burning effigies of the Pope as ridiculous and childish, noting that insulting the religion of Catholic soldiers fighting for the American cause was so monstrous as not to be suffered or excused. Washington championed the idea that Catholics should not be second-class citizens, and that they had a right to expect the full extension of citizenship rights in the country they helped build. As we look back at the 250th anniversary of our nation, the story of this tiny 2% is a beautiful reminder of what makes America great. They were a small, marginalized minority who faced legal restrictions and social prejudice. Yet, when the drums of war sounded, they didn't hold back. They didn't let bitterness keep them from the battlefield. Instead, they risked their immense fortunes, spilled their blood, led the Navy, and nursed the dying because they believed in the promise of a free land. They didn't just help win a war. They helped build a home where religious liberty could finally flourish for everyone. The next time you look at the Declaration of Independence or think of the heroes of 1776, remember the 2% who saved the revolution, because their story isn't just Catholic history, it is American history. Thank you for watching, and God bless.